Good morning. This lesson is for my integrated one. This is going to be our first lesson of the year. This is also going to be used for my honors integrated one. So we're going to be doubling up on these lessons. So let me go over our goals today. Actually, before I do that, I would like to say I hope everyone's doing okay out there. Let's go over our goals. Our first goal is going to be reviewing adding and subtracting. Our second goal is going to be solving one-step equations using adding and subtracting. That's why we're going to review that. And our third goal is going to be checking our answers. So let's jump right in and let's talk about reviewing adding and subtracting. Now, one of the things that I've noticed about students is they get mixed up when they're going to add and when you're going to subtract. And so what I like to do is I like to think about adding and subtracting, or negatives and positives, as having and owing money. So what I have is I'm going to say that a negative is owing money and a positive is having money. Now, in mathematics, you don't have to necessarily announce that your number is positive. So right here, this 5, since there's no sign in front of it, we understand that this 5 is positive. And so if we look at 5 plus 6, we can actually think of it as having $5 and having $6, which in total means that we actually have $11. So this is going to be $11. I have $11 because I have 5 and I have 6. Okay. The second example would be 5 minus 6. So let's think about it in terms of money. I have $5 because it's a positive. I have $5, but I owe $6. And since I owe more than I have, that means that I still owe $1. So if I have $5, I owe you 6, I give you the 5, you're going to tell me you still owe me $1, right? Because I owe more than I have. The next example, I owe you $5, but I have $6. So I have more than I owe, which means that I still have money. So we're going to say that minus 5 plus 6, that is going to be equal to positive 1. And what I want to point out with these two examples is the answer is the sign of a larger number, right? Negative 6 minus 1, positive 6 plus 1. All right, the last example. Let me say it again in terms of money. I owe you $5. I owe you $6. You're going to tell me that I owe you $11. So this is the arithmetic that we need to know for solving one-step equations by adding or subtracting. So I'm going to check this goal off. This goal is off. All right, so now we're on to our second goal here. And our second goal is going to be solving one-step equations using addition and subtraction. And I should have written in the directions that we are going to solve for x. So let me just quickly add that. So we're going to solve for x. And what I'm telling you to do when I say solve for x is I'm telling you that I want you to get x by itself on one side of the equation. And so for this first equation, you can see that x is not by itself on one side of the equation. It actually has a plus 6, keeping it from being by itself. So what I have to do is I have to use the opposite of plus 6. And in order to make this 6 go away, I need to subtract 6. And remember, I have an equation. So in order to solve an equation, I have to keep my equations balanced. So if I take away a 6 on one side, I must also take away a 6 from the other side. So let's see here. I have 6, I owe 6. That means they cancel out, and I'm left with nobody else except for the x on the left side of the equation. And here we get back to the adding and subtracting. I have $12 because it's positive. I owe $6. So now I'm left with just $6. or 6, right? So here I've solved for x because I've isolated x on one side of the equation, so x is now by itself. This would be an example of solving an equation by subtraction. This is what solving by subtraction is. Okay? So that's what it looks like to solve by subtraction. Even though the problem had a plus sign, I had to use subtraction to solve. The next equation that I'd like to, again, solve first. I want to get this x by itself. And I have this plus, or this minus 4. I need to move this minus 4 to the other side. So in order to make minus 4 go away, I'm going to have to use the opposite. So I have to make minus 4 disappear by using plus 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Okay, so the minus 4 and the plus 4, those are going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with my x. And this goes back to our previous review of adding and subtracting, and if we think about it in terms of money, let's look at it like this. I owe you $8. I can only pay you $4. So what are you going to tell me? You're going to tell me, hey, you still owe me $4. Remember, owing money is a negative thing. So x equals 4. Now, this is what it looks like to solve by addition. This is solving by addition. My grammar is terrible. This is solving by subtraction, and this is solving by addition. So that is what it looks like to solve by subtraction. This is what it looks like to solve by addition. Now, to be honest with you guys, I'm having a little hard time figuring out how I want to assign homework digitally, in an online environment. And so, showing your work like this isn't necessarily easy to do. So I'm thinking that maybe for the first couple of assignments, is I'm going to ask you to explain to me how you would solve this equation. So, for example, if I gave you this, I would ask you, how would you solve for x? How do you get x by itself? And so if we look at this and we pay attention to the 7 and we realize that since there's no sign in front of the 7, that is a plus 7, and we compare the only two ways that we're solving equations right now, because I can only ask you two things only. I can ask you to solve by subtraction, or I can ask you to solve by addition. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what do we have to do to this to make this plus 7 go away? And the answer to this question that you're going to be asked to do in your homework is, you're just going to tell me, I would subtract 7 to both sides. So that would be your answer, because again, I'm having a hard time figuring out how to have an easy way for you guys to do math online. So the answer for this problem would be, you subtract 7 to both sides. Now, this problem has these numbers switched, but that's okay. So right now I'm thinking is you're going to explain to me how you go about solving these problems. And there's only two ways that we can solve them. We can solve them by subtraction, which means we make a positive number go away. Or we can solve them by addition, which means we make a negative number go away. So these are the only two things I can ask you as of this point. Can you solve by adding, or can you solve by subtracting? And remember, I'm going to tell you who I want you to solve for. So I do have a third part, checking the answers, and we'll jump into that. And I'm going to put a check mark next to goal number 2. So again, I can only ask you to solve by adding or subtracting. That's it. It's one or the other. There's nothing else that we've learned in this class. I can only ask you one of two things. Alright? So here we go. So if I make up an equation, let's say like x plus 4 equals 7, I'm going to have to solve it by adding or subtracting. Let's see here. I've got a plus 4, I need to make that go away, so I'm going to need to solve it by subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 4 to both sides. Minus 4, minus 4. So let's see here. These 4's cancel, and x is going to be equal to 3. Alright? So I've solved it. I've done my steps. But now I need to check it. I need to make sure that this is the correct answer. And remember, when I check, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the answer, and I have to get a true statement. And where I plug my answer is I plug it into my original equation. So my original equation was x plus 4 is equal to 7. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this x, which is this x, with the 3. So I'm no longer going to say x plus 4. I'm just going to put a parenthesis in the place of the x. And I'm going to plug in a 3 in its place. And what I'm going to do is I'm now going to simplify it. 3 plus 4 is 7. Does 7 equal 7? That is true. Right? So what that means is that x equals 3 is a solution. So this is what it looks like when we solve and check. Now, if you plug in and get a false statement, that means that you do not have a solution. And so I'll real quickly do an example where I make a mistake, and you can see that we get a false statement, and it does not do this. And what that means is that we made a mistake. And most likely we made a mistake in our adding and our subtracting. All right, so this is what checking looks like. This is what checking looks like. All right, so let me just make up another problem here real quick. And I'll see if you guys can figure out where I'm making my mistake. So if I have x minus 2 equals, I'll say x plus 2 equals negative 9. I need to subtract away the 2. Right, because we have to solve by subtraction, and we'll say that x equals 11. All right, so now I'm going to check my work. So I'm going to take my original equation, x plus 2, and that's equal to 9. I'm no longer going to write the x, I'm going to replace equals negative 9. I'm making mistakes everywhere. I'm no longer going to write x, I'm going to write a parenthesis. And inside the parenthesis, I'm going to replace it with the value that I found x to be. And I found x to be 11. So 11 plus 2, that's going to give me 13. 13 does not equal negative 9. So I plugged in my answer, and I got a false statement. So what that means is x equals 11 is not a solution, because this is false. If this is false, you made a mistake somewhere. So x equals 11 is not a solution, because it did not give us a true statement. Not all answers are solutions. All right? They're a solution when you plug them in and you get a true statement. So in fact, we need to go back and see where we made the mistake. And so the mistake we actually made was, if I owe you $9 and I owe you $2, you're going to tell me that I owe you $11. And when I plug in negative 11, I owe you 11, I give you 2. Now you're going to say, hey, you still owe me $9. I feel like I'm writing upside down. And so now negative 9 equals negative 9, and it's a true statement, and we found our solution. All right. So this is our first lesson in solving one-step equations using addition and subtraction. All right, we reviewed adding and subtracting, think about positive and negative, having, owing, when to add, when to subtract, and what does it mean to check. Okay, so this is going to be our first lesson. Now, I do have a challenge problem. I'm going to wait till the Zoom class to talk about it. I think it's a fun problem. But again, it can only be about one at a time. All right, everybody. I'll see you later. Have a good day.